Welcome to the New Music Podcast, guys. We got your two regular jackoffs from upstate New York. My name is Patrick.
And I'm Kyle.
Welcome back. We got another awesome interviewee. We got our boy Ben Simon on the show. Say hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys.
We briefly reviewed your album a couple weeks back, and we loved it. So,
good.
just want to start it off by saying yes, we did enjoy it. You had a lot of really cool features on the album.
Yes.
I want to start there.
Sure.
So tell me what that process was like.
Well, I'll start at the end, and then kind of, I think, go back to the beginning on that one. Like the end result was exactly what I was hoping for. So all the work that kind of went into it, it ended up being like perfectly worth it. But it was definitely I think a bigger undertaking than I thought it would be. When I first kind of when I first started understanding that the record needed guest spots, because this Ellipsism is my third record, and it's probably going to be my last one for a little while, at least full album for the next little while.
Right.
And I kind of wanted to make sure that I didn't want to look back on this record a year from now, 2 years from now, and be like, oh, I should have done this,
Yep.
And there's going to be a degree to that, but I just didn't want one of the areas to be like, oh, I know it would have been cool if I tried to contact some people and see if they were interested.
So when you originally wrote the record, you didn't plan on having these guest spots. They kind of were.
There were some, when I first started writing the record, like there's a few songs that don't have guest spots, and those are probably the songs that were written first, I would think. But there were some songs that once I started realizing that I actually could get guest vocalists and guest solos and that kind of stuff, I think that's when my writing changed a little bit. Because with my first album, I released it first instrumentally. Like I didn't even have an idea of having vocals and that kind of stuff. And as I slowly got bigger, I think people started seeing that I was serious about what I did. I wasn't going to make them look bad.
Right.
It wasn't going to be some shitty I'm putting out an album through GarageBand type recording. You know what I mean? So
Hey, everybody's got to start somewhere.
I started on GarageBand not gonna lie, I used to type in program drums because I couldn't figure out how to actually program them. We all start self-teaching somewhere, but 2014, that kind of stuff, I would not have been considering guest vocals at all or guest spots at all, because I just didn't have any following, any sort of name in regards to my own music and that kind of stuff. So as I built up a little bit of a reputation, and for the people that didn't know me, I could send them my stuff and be like, this is the kind of stuff that I write. Would you be interested? That's when things started getting a lot better. But there were parts that I definitely wrote for vocalists in mind once I knew that they were down to record. Guest solos are usually pretty easy to find. Guest vocalists was a bit of a trick, but it ended up going super well. But it was just a lot of coordination of going, okay, I need your solo by this date because I need to bring it to the studio, and it's not me being it's not me being bossy. I just need it for the timeline that we're trying to follow, So I didn't like that aspect of I don't like having to tell people what to do. And kind of being on top of people, be like, come on, let's go, But that's kind of the way that musicians are in general. That we're there are some musicians that are type A. I am one of them, and then there's most of them are type D for do it later, But that being said, the ones that ended up working out, they all just killed it. So, but a lot of times I would contact a person before the song was written, of hey, I would love to have you on this album. What would you think? And as soon as they gave me the approval, then I would try and write a part for them in mind. So Like guest solos are really
Yeah.
easy because you just need a solid rhythm part. But like the two guest vocals, Andrew Patterson and Ben Dewar, like I specifically wrote those parts for them because I know Andrew's styles. I know he drags his voice a lot, so I wanted the guitars to be a lot more open. Where Ben, his lows are insane. So I wanted to make sure that song, it was just kind of a gnarly, slower thing that he would be able to explore his voice a little bit more. Um, but yeah, that's basically the process, and repeat that like 9 times, and then you have all your guest spots. So
You managed to get 2 members of Shadow of Intent on this. That's pretty impressive. You got Ben and you got Chris.
yeah,
You got Chris for playing guitar.
yes, yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. Ben wasn't so down for playing guitar, so it's yeah, it ended up being amazing. Like I've been a fan of Shadow of Intent for a while now, and like I just for well over a year now. I've been definitely well over 2 years now, but was just talking to Ben. I was like, "Hey, can't wait to see you at the show," that kind of stuff. Just kind of showing him that I wasn't one of these people that was like, "Hey, can I use your services?" Okay, bye. So it's like I have Shadow of Intent merch. I've seen them now twice live, so um, I do support them as a band. I think they're unreal. I think they're really going to be, if they aren't already, I think they're really pushing what deathcore is. Um,
I think I
and,
can agree with that.
Yeah.
They've
yeah,
done very well for themselves, and as a band that is completely independent,
so yeah,
the things that they can afford to do because they're independent is just insane.
yeah, and
Yeah.
their production is so good. Like these guys don't sound young. They are all veteran musicians, but you compare them around to bands that have been around forever.
Yeah.
These guys are
Exactly.
fairly new, and they're just killing it, which I think is amazing. So I think just establishing a conversation with those guys, and talking to them as like normal people was probably my best move. You know,
There
and
you go.
commenting on statuses and that kind of stuff, and just engaging. Ben actually checked out my second album when it released, which was really cool.
That was
Um,
what, like 2015?
2016,
No,
yeah,
2016. I'm looking
yeah,
at your discography, just making sure that when I reference things, I'm referencing them right.
yeah.
Because
No
I
worries.
even wanted to ask you how I was supposed to say the name of your newest album, because I've been calling it Ellipsism. I'm not
Ellipsis.
sure if. Oh, okay. That sounds better than the way I was saying it. I wasn't sure.
Honestly, the fact that other people are trying to pronounce it other than me is like just the coolest thing ever. So I don't care how you pronounce it, man. The fact that you listened to it in the first place is the biggest compliment I could get. So, but yeah. So after that, it was just coordinating with all these people, and they all killed their parts, which was amazing.
I have to agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so why don't you tell us how you got started, kind of like your origin story and how you got started playing music.
Play music? Well, I mean, I started really, really young. I started on the piano first. And I guess probably around year 2 into the piano, I really wanted to play the guitar. There was just something about that instrument that was just, I mean, guitars still look super cool, as a young kid, and I just wanted to look cool and that kind of stuff. But there was just something about the guitar that was calling me a bit more than the piano. Um, and my dad was like, if you play piano for 5 years, I will get you whatever instrument you want. So if you want to play drums, I will buy you a drum kit. If you want to play guitar, I will buy you a guitar, but you need to do 5 years of piano. So I did 5 years of piano, and then got my guitar, and then it just was kind of love at
Is your
first.
dad a musician?
No, so my dad passed away a few years ago, but
Sorry.
life, man. But no, he always had an appreciation. I mean, he was super cool because whatever your passion was, he just want you to pursue it as hard as you possibly could. Do you know what I mean? Like for him,
Yep.
for me, he always wanted me to be bigger than just playing in your bedroom. You know, so whether that ended
That's
up,
interesting because that's kind of the trend.
yeah,
There's so many bedroom producers now.
exactly. But I think for him, what bedroom meant for him, because you have to remember, like at that time too, right? Like, it was more like he wanted my music to be out there and people to be able to hear it. So whether I recorded it in my room or whatever was one thing, but he just didn't want me to turn on the amp, play, turn off the amp, and that was it.
Yeah.
You know, he wanted it to be, wanted me to push myself to show people what I was doing and that kind of stuff. So I was naturally creative with the guitar. So I have written one song on piano. It's on my second album, Worship the Ancient. That's the first song I've ever written on the piano. Piano just didn't click for me in that same way that guitar did, where as soon as I picked up the guitar, I was like, okay, cool, I can write on this thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always measured my progress as a musician by, is the songs that I'm creating. So I did the YouTube thing, posted a video every few months, you know, so you can go back and find videos of when I was like 11, you know, and just kind of went from there. And then my dad ended up passing away from cancer in 2013. And that kind of messed me up, as expected. I think I was 19. And after that, I was really pursuing music, because it was basically became like my form of therapy.
Would you advocate anybody listening to do the same?
I mean, everybody's different, so I would make sure that I would not say make sure it's your. If it's right for you, then absolutely pursue it. But some people need, like I did, musical therapy, and then a year later, I realized I still needed actual therapy. You know,
Yeah.
I needed somebody to talk to. My music did a lot, but it didn't do everything that I needed. You know, so that's what I would say, is yes, pour your heart and soul into your music always, regardless of what's going on. But understand, if you need somebody to talk to, go talk to somebody without being ashamed of it. You know, it's 2020. If anybody's shaming you for going to see somebody to talk, fuck them. You know.
They don't have your best interest in mind,
Yeah,
then.
exactly.
Yeah, you don't need those kinds of people in your life. So, yeah. So then, because I was writing a huge amount, I had these kind of the rough form of my debut album, The Reckoning. And then I just happened to be online, and somebody was posting that they were looking for like new musicians to come into the studio and record, and it looked like a beautiful space and that kind of stuff. And he ended up being like 20 minutes from my place.
Damn, lucky.
Things that just lined up. And at that point, I was just like, the worst thing that happens is that he says no, and that he's not interested in my stuff. And he turns out he was super nice dude. He's actually one of my groomsmen at my wedding, because we've just gotten really, really
Wow.
close.
Holy shit.
So yeah, so we ended up recording that album. It ended up being received well, and then I created my page after that album was released, and then just kind of went from there. And then it just kind of became an addiction, you know. It was like, okay, well, my first album was an experiment, so now I want to do this with my second album. And then I did that with my second album, and I was like, okay, now I want to do this with my third one, you know. So you know, my mom is super supportive of what I do, and you know, I'm very lucky for the parents that I had and have, to be in a position where I am now. So yeah, but my dad was definitely one of those ones where it's like, my mom would be more reserved. Like, are you sure you want to contact the studio? Are you sure you want to do this? Not because she's dampening or any of that kind of stuff. It's just she's a bit more like, should you save more? Should you, you know? Or my dad's like, do it. You know?
Yeah.
That is literally going to be me when Jacoby gets old enough to start playing an instrument. I've always said that piano makes sense for you to learn how to play first. Just this way you learn the entire spectrum of notes.
Yeah.
Maybe drums after so you can learn rhythm, but that's kind of up to you at that point, because every kid that wants to be a musician is going to find their calling. And
Exactly.
yours happened to be guitar.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, you picked up vocals at some point. So what was that process like?
What do you mean I picked up vocals? I never picked up vocals.
So you aren't the vocalist on this record.
No, that's not me.
What?
Bro!
Okay, hold on.
That's not me.
So
No
who?
way, man.
And all this
So,
time, I thought you were a solo project. My whole
no,
mind is blown.
okay. So basically, how that all works, it's really weird. It's basically, I mean, when I released The Reckoning, if you look at the release dates closely, now I always tell people that I released it in 2014, but if you actually look up the release dates, you'll see that The Reckoning instrumental came out in 2014, and the vocal edition came out later in 2015.
For anybody watching on YouTube, you can see that right here.
Yes, so 2014 and 2015. Okay, so after 2014, it was just me. In 2015, people were like, you should put some vocals on this. And I was like, I can't scream at all. Not even close. So I just happened to be listening to Eternal Void, and who are a pretty great group of dudes. But they were smaller. And I went, here's a guy who can scream, and they're smaller, so he's accessible. So then I just like started opening up a conversation with Logan, the vocalist, and we ended up hitting it off and kind of recording from there. So we've done it differently every single time. Like the first time, he wrote all the lyrics and the vocal placements. The second album, I wrote the lyrics with another guy named David, because Logan didn't really have the time. It's a concept album from like start to finish, so I had to do a lot of research on like the Sumerian flood myth, you know. So my buddy David is totally into that stuff as well. So we did a lot of research. We wrote the lyrics together, and then I wrote the kind of the vocal placements, and then Ellipsism I did on my own. I wrote the lyrics and the vocal placements, and then I got Logan to scream. So I think that's why people are like, "Oh, it's a solo project," because I write everything, but there's just some things I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, learn something new every day.
Oh man, that's fucking awesome. So switching gears here. What did you have for breakfast?
Bro, I had a great breakfast. This morning. My fiance is getting wiped. What did I have? I had eggs, potatoes, and like little croissants, dude. The most metal breakfast you can have.
I made, because I take home a lot of food from Starbucks, so I have a lot of loaves of pumpkin bread still in my
Nice.
freezer.
Yeah.
Not from October, thankfully.
No.
Okay. Good.
And of course I bought an extra carton of eggs, so honestly our breakfast was very similar. So me and the boy just sat back, ate some cheesy eggs and pumpkin bread.
Yeah, man. You gotta,
What about
like,
you, Kyle?
I had a bagel, really, with some coffee. That's all I had.
A true New York breakfast.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
where are you from, Ben?
I am from Ontario, so I am just outside. I'm about 40 minutes outside of Toronto.
Our Canadian brothers.
Yeah, man. But yeah, that's where I'm from. That's I'm like probably one of like two metalheads in my town. So
Small town or just?
yep, small town, and just culturally not set up to be kind of open to metalheads. I think. Like we're so small that we don't really have venues. Like you can go over to the neighboring town and get that kind of stuff, but it is definitely a smaller scene. I think the hard part for me growing up was realizing that like I would either jam with musicians who were way too talented, you know, or at that point when I was in high school, I was like, okay, I can't even keep up, or I was in the opposite shoes where I was like, okay, keep up, you know.
Yep.
It was never like that kind of time where I really meshed with a whole bunch of people, you know. But, It is what it
And
is.
that's why I never kept playing bass guitar, because I was
Yeah.
always the one who was like falling behind. I was like, okay, I play good enough to play post-hardcore. I'm gonna
Yeah,
stick to that.
right.
I'm gonna stick to that. And then I learned how to scream, and I was like, you know what? I like doing this.
Yeah, man.
I'm gonna
If I
stick to
could scream, I
that.
think I would. It just seems like so much fun.
It's
But
too much fun.
yeah,
Kyle, you can vouch for this. You ever been singing in public and then you realize that you're terrifying people?
I do it all the time in my back room at work, like all the fucking time without even noticing. Like I'll be walking in the back room going past somebody and I'll be like
And
and
so
then
they
like
like
think that
Infinite
Kyle turns to a
Annihilator.
zombie.
yeah,
Kyle's a zombie or some shit
like
now.
Infinite Annihilator.
Oh yeah, okay, you're wearing the shirt. I couldn't even see it because it's cut off. So.
Yeah, hold on. Let me
Boom.
get up.
That's
Check out them
hilarious.
titties.
Yes. Holy.
Yeah, I'll be
Did you
just
wear that to work today?
no.
Oh,
I
it's
have that
that
shirt.
fucking shirt.
I have that shirt, but
Oh,
it's in
man.
pink.
I have the pink one too, except it's almost white now because I keep going to concerts with it on, and so it's just like slowly faded into oblivion.
I can't wear lighter colored shirts to shows because then I get pit stains and then I just never want to wear that shirt again.
I'm so sweaty, I don't even care. Like when I'm at shows, it's like it's drenched by the end of it. But the amount of
Yeah.
times that people are like, "Can I get a picture of you in that shirt?" Like, it's pretty hilarious. Oh my!
Sure.
I'm like, all right. Also, check out my new album.
Hand someone a physical copy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I burnt this on my computer at home. Wait, what is this thing?
Honestly, though, man, I teach guitar, and like a lot of my students are young, and they just have no. Are those CDs? I'm like, I knew I would feel old. I just didn't realize it'd be my mid-20s. Do you know what I mean?
I
I do.
feel old and I'm almost 23. So
Yeah, I'm 26, so it's like I did not realize how quickly I would be excommunicated from that group of people.
You know, that was me a couple of years ago. So I'm 28 now, and I'm realizing that all the music that I like is considered old, like dad rock now, and I'm like,
Sure.
fuck.
The genres have shifted.
It's like Emarosa, Alisana, Blessed to Fall, the old Bring the Horizon and stuff like that. Like that's
Like
first
2000,
wave to this
2008 or
generation
whatever.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, what's Chiodos? And I'm like,
So how did you get into metal, if you don't mind me asking? Because I'm always curious on how people kind of discovered. Okay, like how did you get into metal, and then how did you get into screaming? Because those are usually two different things.
for me, my dad got me into it.
Oh, man.
My dad handed me Pantera when I was like 10 or 11.
Oh, so harsh vocals right off the bat.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was Pantera, Drowning Pool, Metallica, stuff like that. What about you, Kyle?
Did your dad get you into an Infinite Annihilator?
no.
His dad got him into cocaine.
Yeah.
No.
Hey man, we all have our strengths.
I was just good at doing coke, I guess.
Yeah, it's just, it was just laying
And
there.
then the metal music came later.
Yeah.
No, basically, I grew up a split family. I lived with my mom. So she listened to country, like the old country. So that escalated into hard rock, which was Papa Roach, and then uh, in high school, my buddy was listening. He was the only like straight up like metalcore, deathcore, shit like that.
Right.
So I thought it was just screaming, in my opinion, when I was younger. So I was like, this is kind of stupid. And then when he moved away, I listened to Asking Alexandria, the old stuff, and I was like, ooh, okay, I'm actually enjoying this. And then it went on to Five Finger Death Punch, and then which I don't listen to anymore. And then it went on to Slipknot, and Slipknot is my all-time favorite band, except for the newest album.
Right.
But
I haven't heard it yet, so.
it's subpar.
Yeah.
Give it a listen anyways, because
yeah.
there's something for every type of Slipknot fan on that album.
Yeah.
Nero Forte's where it is for
Exactly.
me.
Right.
I
Um,
think Kyle and I both agreed on
yeah.
that.
And then it just escalated after, because I've seen Slipknot like 5 or 6 times live.
Okay.
And I have a Slipknot tattoo on my thigh. Um,
It's pretty devoted.
Yeah.
yeah. And then it escalated to, I would say it kept on that range until I met Pat, and then I started listening to like porno grind and fucking harsh fucking music.
Yeah.
So, and then I felt, well, I actually found Infant Annihilator by myself. And I was like, Decapitation Fornication, that stupid video where they're in the woods fucking each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, this band is amazing. And then no, I'm here.
Amazing, man. Yeah, I don't really listen to Infinite Annihilator, but I'll never forget the first time I heard was that the cradle rocks and the ruby gets to splinter like that. Whatever
Is
that's.
that Decapitation Fornication? I really don't.
Oh,
I'm
No,
not even.
that's
It's
Soil
probably
Stillborn.
yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if that was when Dan was still in the band or not.
Uh, I don't know.
I love that song, but all the other ones, it's a little bit too intense for me, I think.
Their new album is just nasty. Their newest album is nasty.
Dickie
Yeah,
Allen literally took that band in a whole new direction,
Oh yeah, he did.
I
it's the
think.
battle for something, right? Battle for Yagoboth or something like.
I've been calling it Y'all the Bath, but
Aldebath.
I
Aldebath.
think it's Y'all the Boeth. If I had to guess, I don't really know.
I saw one of their music videos because it was hilarious, but
I think Three
That was
I
Bastards.
love
Three
bands
Bastards.
like that. Yeah, I love bands that are like that, man, where they're like satire but still.
Like Three Bastards was not my favorite song. Like I thought the video kind of ruined it, and then as soon as the album came out and I started to listen to it, I was like, okay, this song's starting to
This
grow
song
on me.
fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like the metal world, it was like my dad was also like always into like classic rock, just the stereotypical, you know, dad rock, just Q107. Well, I don't know if you guys know what that is. Sorry, that's like a
No,
Toronto.
I
I
know
don't
what
know.
that is.
Okay, this is a Toronto station, but like Neil Young, Eric Clapton, Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But then personally, I went from I remember being in daycare and listening to Linkin Park and Billy Talent, and being really big fans of that. And like with Billy Talent, you have some of the harsher vocals as well, but it was very what do you say, reserved. It was only brought out in special occasions, so it was always tolerated. Same with Linkin Park. You always knew that like that heavy part was coming, and then they would back off. You know.
Like we have to be edgy for mainstream standards, but we can't be too heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I kind of missed the scene phase completely. Like I listened to AFI, like one of their albums. I can't even remember what it
Mhm.
was. Silver and Coal, maybe is that what it's called?
That was one of the songs, definitely. I
Oh.
couldn't tell you
Whatever
what
that,
album it was
whatever
on.
album that is, that's the album that I listened to. And then Sum 41 would have another big band that I would have listened to. And then my buddy in like grade 7 showed me the S&M, For Whom the Bell Tolls,
Mm.
Oh.
with the orchestra and everything. And I was like, this is crazy, what I mean? Because it was still clean singing essentially.
Yeah.
Wasn't I mean, James doesn't have a super harsh voice, uh, but it had the orchestral accompaniment that I love, and it was also angrier than anything I had ever heard before.
Yeah.
But still understandable. Yeah, kind of stuff. So that was kind of where my head was at for like 2 years. Metallica is definitely my favorite band, just because I have so much that I owe them for being where I am. That they'll just never not be my favorite band.
Now that you say that, I can kind of hear it in the chugging patterns that you use
Oh,
throughout, especially the last album.
yeah, all the down picking
Makes
and stuff. Like
sense.
that's I always tell people, if you like down picking, blame James Hetfield, because that's why I down pick so much.
Yeah.
Just because learning how to play songs like Master of Puppets and that kind of stuff is okay. Down pick for 7 minutes, so I just got very good at down picking. And then as I got into high school, I still really, really didn't like screaming. Didn't at all. I remember checking out like old August Burns Red videos of like when they were playing in like basements and stuff, and be like, nope, don't like it. And then leaving, and then coming back to that video years later and being like, this is so good.
Yeah.
You know? But then I got into Trivium. Trivium, I think, was my gateway.
Trivium is a good one.
Yeah, lots of singing. You know, really, really technical, like way more technical than Metallica. The song structures were a bit different, but still digestible. And really kind of got into that. And I think listening to Trivium a lot when I was younger. I mean, I still listen to them like crazy, but when I was younger, that definitely got me used to screaming. And I progressively got more used to heavier song structures. Like
Did
I
you
used to
ever
listen.
get into Bullet for My Valentine?
Yeah, Bullet for My Valentine would be
Because
another
that
one.
was like right around the same time too.
Yeah, like Hand of Blood. Like I could name you like 3 or 4 songs, you know, where it was like, oh yeah, that, like I didn't listen to a whole bunch of their stuff. Dirge Within would have been another band that I really liked. But I also listened to things like Blooded Science, you know, just
They're
instrumental.
fucking out there.
Yeah, like super weird stuff, but no vocals, which is why I liked it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I can't remember what I would have gotten into after Trivium. Possibly August Burns Red. I think might have been the next. Protest the Hero would have been another one. Toronto Boys. So
You know, Protest the Hero released a lot of their albums in instrumental form. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. I did not know.
Because I'm okay. Kyle knows this. Most of the people who listen to the podcast know this. I'm crazy about music in its instrumental form.
Oh yeah,
I have an instrumental death and core playlist that is about 40 hours.
Amazing.
So it's about a work week's worth of death metal, gent, metalcore. There's some things that I omit on purpose just because I feel like it doesn't fit the entire heaviness of it.
Yeah.
There's some weird shit on there too. Like there's I don't even know where to begin. There's just so much. I mean, 40 hours worth of instrumental music is enough said, really.
Yeah, I think I got like progressively heavier with the instrumentals first. You know, really liked with the guitar work. Like Protest was again one of those bands that I did not like because of the vocals. And then I started learning the drums for Heretics and Killers.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess over time I just became accustomed to it. And it just sort of grew on me. But it's amazing how you just start tolerating different things, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, probably one of my favorite bands now is like Fit for an Autopsy.
I could see that. They're very ahead of their time, or at least they were when they started. And
Yeah,
I mean,
each album they write is so different, you know. And Joe Bad, the vocalist, is so underrated.
he really is.
No,
Yeah,
like
he
more
is.
people should know who this person is because he's ridiculously talented. He's just as good live as he is on record, you know. Um, but yeah, like I dabbled in like I used to listen to Malakesh a lot. I don't know if you guys ever listen to them at all. They're like
Who was that?
Malakesh. They're like Middle Eastern black metal essentially.
Oh well,
But like
I'm out of that.
no, but I
How
was
do
like
you spell it?
Melechesh.
That's a fucking name.
Malakesh. Yeah, there might be
Yeah.
an explanation there, but they're so sick. And like that's the band that like my style that I write is like that kind of Eastern vibe. And Malakesh would have been like one of the first metal bands that I heard do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where I was like, "Well, it sounds like you're in a desert. Sick." You know?
I love sitar. I love sitar, especially when it's played just right. I
Yeah.
think sitar and harp, if you can get them to sound right in a metal mix, especially together,
Oh,
heavenly.
yeah. And I'm like a big advocate of like orchestral stuff. I think
Yeah.
orchestral stuff and metal are like they're part of the same family. You know,
They
so when
really are.
you get them to mash up. Well, I like it's hard to do it right though, and not have them sound too programmed. You know, um,
That's really hard now because the word that people throw around is that it's easy to to find yourself there, but producing music is far from easy.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's a struggle that most musicians find themselves in, especially when programming drums, to not sound robotic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you heard any of the older symphonies that were re-recorded or played in metal, like metal versions of like anything Bach has done? They're
No, but
absolutely sick.
I remember being into like I don't know if you guys know. I mean, maybe if were you around when YouTube like kind of was first starting? Were you guys on YouTube when?
I was
Yeah.
I was gonna say because there was a band called I think it was called Pergamum, I think, and I remember loving Pergamum. I don't even know what it means or what it is, but they're definitely not around anymore. But they used to do like metal covers of like you know they would have Vivaldi blending into Moonlight Sonata, blending into, and it was like really cool stuff. But this is like I want to say like maybe 2007.
I was
I
probably watching like stupid videos other than music. I wasn't really
Yeah,
watching music videos or anything on YouTube back then.
I was totally into that. I was convinced at that age. I think I was totally convinced that I was going to end up doing like metal versions of like orchestral songs, or of classical songs.
think at
Just
that
because I
time
was.
I was really into Guitar Hero, and I was slapping bass, but I had a really shitty first act bass guitar, and I didn't really see myself going anywhere with it.
Yeah,
But eventually learned
but
how
yeah,
to do vocals.
yeah. I can't. I just can't do it. And I also don't have. I also know as a musician, I do not have the time to commit into learning another instrument right now. Like people underestimate how much time it actually takes. And when you're not going all in, it's going to take even longer. So I'm like,
You gotta respect the multi-instrumentalists. Those
yeah,
guys, I
right.
don't know how they fucking do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I understand. Like, piano gave me the ability to understand music, so I could write orchestral stuff. So I could write the drums and I can write that kind of stuff. But yeah, those people that are like stupidly good at guitar and stupidly good at drums or something, you're like, when did you find the time to do this? But I was playing Death Stranding or something. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
they better utilize that time.
Literally, Kyle.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
It's not wrong.
no, it's not.
You've given me plenty of music to check out for after this.
I'd be interested what you think of Malakesh. I'd be curious to think because they're definitely. I found them really accessible,
Mhm.
and again, it's like the only black. I mean, I listen to some Behemoth, but um, definitely not at that age though. The reason I tolerated the vocals because I love the instrumentals so much. So you
I
just end
think
up
that's
getting
how I
used to it.
felt about bands like As I Lay Dying and Arch Enemy. Like when I first started listening to metal,
Yeah,
and like the only screaming that I really got into was bands like Bullet for My Valentine and Trivium.
yeah,
Because when I first started getting into metal, like, it was always around my upbringing. Like, yeah, I grew up in a family that was really into wrestling. So
right,
naturally, I was kind of into it up until, I guess, the preteens when I decided to start thinking for myself.
right,
Um, I was really into punk music. So I was
yeah,
really into like Ramones, Green Day. Rancid will probably always be my favorite band.
mm,
Um, well, at least for bass guitar, anyways.
sure,
Because I grew up wanting to be a good bassist. Um, and good bass in punk is just, oh fuck. But when I started finding myself getting into metal, it was just like, this is a whole new thing for me. And so vocals, especially screaming, like if I told myself at 10 years old that I would be so heavily into screaming vocals, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
Oh yeah, man. I hated it when I first heard it. Like just thought it was the dumbest possible thing you
Yeah,
could
that
ever
was
do.
literally me. That was
Yeah.
literally me.
Let alone gutturals.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I remember straight up telling my dad I would never listen to music that had screaming in it. then it was like, okay, maybe a little bit of screaming. Maybe just a little bit of screaming. You know? I'm like, okay, but how all screaming? You know? It's just... But yeah, I went that like metalcore route too. I never really got into Bring Me the Horizon and that kind of stuff, but I definitely went like As I Lay Dying, August Burns Red would have been another one, Tribute, you know, so that like Parkway
melodic.
Drive I got into way later, like years later. Because I just hadn't heard of them. But I'm trying to think of like I guess a lot of the stuff that I was discovering at the time was just random stuff, you know, like typing metal in on LimeWire and seeing what popped up.
Oh my god, I fucking miss the day. The kids these days don't understand the
Yeah,
struggle of LimeWire.
yeah. Well, like
I did not have
single-handedly
sexual
destroyed my home
relations with that
computer.
woman.
Yeah.
The amount of times I heard that fucking sample when I just wanted to hear the new Slipknot song.
Oh, dude, when
Like,
I like downloaded Chimera's Power Trip, I think was the song. I really liked that song as a kid. And like right in the middle of the solo, it was like, you are listening to Chimera's Power Trip. Buy the album. Like, and like that was just part of the song for me. It was just this advertisement right in the middle of like, you would type in like new Metallica song and people would be like, this is the new Metallica. You download like 100 of them. And of course, none of them were. It was just some guy that maybe sounded like James. And you're like, okay, this sounds cool anyway. You know, and that's how I discovered a lot of the bands. Reading the liner notes of CDs. You know, when I would buy CDs, I would sit down, and while the songs were playing, I'd read the lyrics. And then at the end of if I liked it, at the end of the album, I would just check all the liner notes and then just go and type in all of those bands and see what I liked. But I was kind of the last of that generation of like walk into a CD store and just guess. Like that album cover looks cool. I'll buy that because I've never heard of this band before.
Yeah.
You know, now everything you just like check it out online and you know ahead of time, and then you don't even buy the CD. You just stream it or whatever. But yeah, I'm kind of glad I went through that. But yeah, no, I destroyed my home computer because of Aries and LimeWire. Just all the new Metallica songs I wanted to hear that didn't exist. You know? But yeah,
Metallica hated LimeWire too.
I know.
Well, it was
Or Napster,
it
right?
was Napster. That's the one. That's the
I mean, I
fucking
get it.
one.
I can't say I like as a musician now. Like when you look back on that argument, you're like, I kind of agree.
Yeah.
You know, it was just I think why it wasn't received so well was because Metallica was one of those bands that was like, film our shows. You know, go out and videotape, record them, sell them on the streets. Go ahead. And then you kind of feel, I think people felt blindsided when that Napster thing came out because you're like, you literally said we could do this, and now that we're doing it online, you're saying no.
Yep.
You know, but
because Lars went on like a whole bitch fest about it.
yeah. But then you like look back on it from like musicians' perspectives now, and you're like, fair. You know?
Fair, but you could have handled it better.
Yeah, you could have handled it way better. But like, I'm not gonna lie, when like I see my shit and people are like free download, I'm like, dude, like, I'm by myself here, man. Why just pay the $7? Like,
Or something I've been telling people who are broke as fuck like myself, literally just open up Spotify, press shuffle, and then leave it on overnight.
yeah, just turn your volume off, continue on with your day.
Yeah.
There was a band, I can't remember who it was. I'll never remember. There was a band that needed to fund their tour and their album and that kind of stuff, and it ended up being like things to listen to when you're sleeping, and it was like 5 or 6 tracks of just silence, and they just told their fans just to go listen to it on repeat, and they ended up making like $20,000 so they could fund their. Yeah, this was like early Spotify. They ended up being able to fund their tour and their actual album because of that.
Holy shit.
And I'm
Well, there's
like,
a term for that now. It's called binary beats.
oh, it's amazing. I don't think I have
It
people
is beautiful.
dedicated enough in my social circle, but I respect that hustle so much.
Oh yeah.
But Do you guys release music on your own? Like, because you both do vocals, right? So
It's so here's the thing. I've been in so many bands at this point. Like I've got two that actually had music actually published. Kyle and I are in the midst of working on music right now where I am it's kind of low key, but I
yeah,
will say it's kind of in the lines of trap metal.
cool.
In the lines of like trap metal meets, I guess you could call new metal hardcore shit, whatever. It's a really hard style of music to define.
Yeah.
It's so amazing the styles that we listen to compared to the styles that we write.
Yeah. I mean, I've always wanted to write a metalcore album or a hardcore album now.
Yeah.
Well, not hardcore, post-hardcore.
A lot of the circles I was in early in high school were emo kids. And so naturally, we wanted to play post-hardcore. We wanted to play stuff that sounded like heavier Silverstein, heavier Hawthorne Heights, stuff like
Right.
that. I loved all of that music. Like I really wasn't very discriminatory. I just liked music.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, fuck it, I want to just play music. I don't care what it is. And started from emo, went to a more metalcore route, was in a very motionless in white wannabe band for 2 years. And now here I am trying to make trap metal. So
whatever just keeps your interest in music, man. Because sometimes I find it comes kind of in waves, where you're like, you have
great
no
plug.
interest in it at all, and you have no interest in it at all, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm gonna write something completely different. That's why I don't want to release another album for a while. Is that I literally just want to release singles every so often, where I can be like, one of the big ideas that I'm bouncing around kind of in my brain is that like I would love to have like this like just super heavy breakdown with like bagpipes in the background. Do you know what I mean?
So
Like
what the
just
fuck is that Irish punk band?
Oh my god.
Do
Oh, you're thinking of like Flogging Molly, that kind of stuff? Like
yes. Do
yeah.
like a metal version of Flogging Molly. That would be
Yeah.
sick.
So like my fiance's favorite band is like bands like Rise Against and Flogging Molly. So like but like it's stuff that I could not pull on my own albums, I think. Do you know what I mean? Because it would be so weirdly different from my sound. Uh,
You
where
can
like
always start writing music under a different name or even just sell it to somebody. The great thing about being a musician in today's era is that you can hustle it any way, even if it's
yeah,
like there's the guy that used to be the guitarist in Attack Attack who also did the heavily auto-tuned singing. That guy has a solo project called Bill Murray. Has
mm,
nothing to do with the actor Bill Murray, but that's just the name of the band. And
right.
that guy writes 2 or 3 albums a year and still manages to sell some of his music to other bands. Like he ghostwrites for people like crazy.
That's insane, man.
Like that level of he writes a song every day. I don't know
Yeah,
how people can have that kind of hustle.
Yeah,
yeah.
seriously.
I don't know how people have that kind of
Respect the shit out of that.
headspace, man. I like regardless of hustle. How the hell do you have that many ideas? Mine like I'm really
His
good
whole
at
thing
just
is the
like
routine of it.
I can improvise riffs all the time. It's connecting them that I have the biggest issue with. Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet you all he does is he has probably a desk very similar to mine. He's got his laptop, his studio monitors, and his whole like setup for his guitar. Of course, that I don't have, but he
Right.
probably has. He just sits there, starts a click track, and then just goes, wonder what would sound good here. Let's just fiddle something. Diddly,
Yeah.
diddly, diddly, diddly. I think I managed to accomplish an entire album today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I can't. It only took me a few years.
Only.
But yeah, but that's why I'm like after Ellipsism came out, I was like, okay, I'll probably just do singles and that kind of stuff, and that way I can do stuff that's like, okay, I want to do something way more like way heavier, or I want to do something that's way more in the realm of metalcore, or I want to do something that's like, yeah, I want to break down with bagpipes because I said so.
I
You know what I
think
mean?
that
Like
makes you much more appealing as an artist because you never know what you're gonna expect.
that's the hope, and it's hopefully a lot cheaper for me too than trying to fund an album.
I do think that in today's streaming era, like a lot of bands, especially bands like Bring Me the Horizon, have talked about not wanting to release full albums in 2020, but
Yeah.
just do short EPs, like 4-song EPs, or just singles, because they know that the entire album won't get all the attention or as much respect for every little detail that was put into every song, the same way that like small EPs do.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just kind of the generation that I grew up in. Like, I mean, and I'm also like the last to adapt to everything. Like, I rarely use Spotify myself.
I don't use it at
Like,
all.
yeah,
He
this is the
doesn't. I have
first.
to send him everything on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's like send it to me through YouTube, and then if I like it, I will go from there to iTunes, and then I will buy the album if I like it. If I don't like it, I'm not buying it. If I only like one of the songs, I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
I'm very much a completionist, so I think that's one of the reasons why I stayed away from releasing singles and that kind of stuff. Is that like, yeah, it makes sense in this day and age to do it, but for me as a listener, I love being able to press play, and like I rarely listen to music on shuffle.
Do
I do
you?
it all the time.
If I'm like I'm driving to Ottawa on Tuesday, and like that's a 5 hour drive, and like I'll pick an album and then play that one from beginning to end. Once that album's done, I will go on to the next one. So I usually listen to music in album format just because I like hearing what the artist had intended. Like there's usually a reason why a song is in a certain place. And when you listen to it on shuffle, you kind of lose that. Why was that song placed there?
Like
Especially if
track
it's
eights kind of stuff.
yeah, and especially if you're listening to like a thematic album. You know what I mean? Like you just jump into the middle of a story if you put on shuffle. So like if I'm listening to bands like Slice the Cake, for example,
Yeah.
like I'm not listening to that on shuffle. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I'm listening to that. I'm listening to Mountains of Man or whatever that new album or newer album was.
Hmm.
Like I'm listening to that from start to finish.
Yeah, the only album I can do that is this one black metal band that I listen to, and it's with dancing with something. I can't remember what the album's called, but if you don't go in order, you're gonna be so fucking confused.
Yeah, and I think that's just because I grew up putting the CD into the CD player,
Yeah.
pressing play, sitting down on my bed, and reading the liner notes. You know what I mean? So I think I'm kind of one of the like
I
I'm
went through so
very
many CD
slow.
players as a kid. I used to break them all the time.
Yeah, I just think I'm very slow to adapt to.
Do you buy vinyl?
Yeah, I do have some vinyl. I don't buy it as
Oh,
much
man.
right now simply because I don't really have the space. Like my record player is packed away right now. So once I kind of have my own space that's a bit more permanent, um, then I will definitely be able to buy more because I like the fit. I like having it. I like music that is tangible to me. Which is why I'm really interested with this new Acacia Strain stuff. Like they're releasing like.
I fucking love it. It comes in waves. That
Oh
was
yeah,
a beautiful record.
it was
The whole time you guys were talking
super
about
cool.
that, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's super cool. But like they just released like a new single recently, or two new singles,
Yeah, it
and
was
like, I think
two singles, but they're going back to kind of their new sound, but they are definitely taking elements. You can tell they're trying to do new things, but still satisfy the old
yeah.
fans.
But I think with this album or EP, whatever's coming out, like I think it just spells the word death. I think it is, and each track is like has a different letter associated with it. I don't know how they're doing it. So like that to me is really interesting. But I know me as a listener, instead of buying the songs when they come out, would much rather wait until the end of the year and buy it as one complete album. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like I'm just a bit more of a completionist when it comes to that. So like I have a hard time with singles just because they don't fit anywhere in my brain. You know what I mean? Like it's just I like having them as a project. They're part of this album that encompass this time in this artist's life, that kind of stuff. So singles are harder for me to digest, but I think that's just because I'm stubborn and I haven't quite adapted to. Like Spotify has been around forever, but this is the first album that I've actually advertised that I'm even on Spotify.
Even though all of them are up there.
Yeah, all of them are
Yeah.
up there, and they always have been. I always link people to my iTunes and Bandcamp because I was just too stubborn to link it to Spotify. Where now it's like now I just tell everybody just go to Spotify, just listen because I know that I would buy it on iTunes, but I know that everybody else would want to listen to it on Spotify.
See, that's why what I've tried to do with the podcast is I start that link tree thing where it has every possible thing that you could want it to be. So like as soon as you hit the link tree, it opens up another page that says, do you want the Bandcamp? Do you want the merch store? Do you want Spotify? All that good shit.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to go. And like, I'm one of those people, like, I don't have any data on my phone. You know what I mean? So I have none. Zero megabytes.
So you don't have like an unlimited plan.
No, dude, I don't. I mean, Canadian service sucks when it comes to data. Like, it's
Uh-huh.
so much more expensive naturally, just because we have all right healthcare, bad phone plans. But
It's gonna be a couple years before you guys get 5G.
yeah. So like, and when we do, it's gonna be bloody expensive. So that's because I work from home and I teach here. You know, I'm always on Wi-Fi, so I'm like, data is useless to me. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you gotta like. I don't even know how Spotify works, dude, because I don't. I don't really understand that technology.
I get it for free through work because I work for Starbucks, and so
Right.
they set you up with a free Spotify account because they also have playlists on Spotify and everything. So like they're business affiliate. They're like business partners basically. So I get a free premium account with them.
Yeah. What I do love
Uh,
about Spotify, though, I will say, is that you can have that shuffle or whatever that thing is, where you find random artists or whatever, like playlists, I guess,
They
where it's
do
similar
something
artists. Or
called a release radar that I check out quite frequently and do reference very often on this podcast.
yeah. So like that I appreciate about it, because like when I was younger, you would just type in on YouTube like best breakdowns. That's how I found half the bands that I like I the Breather and that kind of stuff. We
There's
were
a
like,
lot of good channels that do stuff like that, like 10 breakdowns to help you get through your next breakup or some
yeah,
shit like that.
yeah, it was great. And if you could walk away that night with one new band, you're like, cool, that's 3 or 4 more albums that I get to listen to.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure that's how I found. Well, I know that's how I found like I the Breather when I was really into metalcore, and Texas in July, ABR.
I hated Texas in July at first, but they definitely grew on me over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a big fan of like Bloodwork, like their new stuff or their newer
Hmm.
stuff, because I'm a huge fan of JTKV,
Hmm.
their vocalist, who's now with Era. But
Sick.
yeah, Spotify makes it easier.
Absolutely. Big
But
advocate right here. Even
yeah,
though I think iHeartRadio pays best. We read an article not too long ago that said that you get paid 0.0017 for every listen on iHeartRadio, but Spotify was like 0.0014 or something like that. So you get like a penny and like a third of a penny for
yeah,
every time
nice.
someone listens. Yeah. So if you do that, maybe you'll get $1 by morning.
That
If
hurts me on a
you start
molecular
that.
level.
Hmm.
Just like, thank you for putting your heart and soul into this. We'll give you less than a penny back. You're welcome. You know.
Let's see. I spent $2,000 in gear alone.
Yeah.
And then audio production, for all your VSTs and all that, that's another 1,000. Oh, and then writing and recording and producing the record, it's
I
about
did.
another 2,000.
Yeah. Then you have to think distribution.
Hmm.
Also, your media release. Do you want music videos? Do you want lyric videos? Well, that takes people. You have guest features that you need to pay for. Like, it's thousands of dollars, man. It's so bloody expensive. And then that's why I get really pissy with people when they're like, oh, like when Protest Hero did what album? Scurrilous, I think they kickstarted that album, and people were pissed about it. Because they were like, oh, you're gonna ask the fans for more money, blah 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 blah. I'm like,
Yeah,
what
musicians
you
don't make much.
oh, like, what are you paying? Like $10 for the album? Shut up, man. Like, you're not like this investor that's already spent thousands upon thousands in the band. Like, people just don't really understand that, like, there would be less Kickstarters if more people paid for the music that they were listening to, but everybody wants to pay less than a penny per stream. So musicians have to find a way to make money, and sometimes a Kickstarter is the best way to do it.
Absolutely,
So
man.
and it's like, listen, you want me to release more music? Help me release more music. It's it's an interesting time that we live in, where I think everybody. But as that's gone on, I think now people are a bit more receptive to it. But nowadays, the only Kickstarters that are going around are the ones that people's bands have been broken into. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I pity those people too, or like Australian
every
fires,
day.
or some shit like that.
Every day, it's a new band that's gotten their van broken into, and I'm like, this sucks.
Pretty soon, it's going to be one of our members got coronavirus, or we can't tour
Oh,
because
dude.
of coronavirus.
Oh,
but let's
that's
not even open
now.
that up, because
Yeah,
that's
that's now, man. I was supposed to see Die Art is Murder and Fit for an Autopsy in next month, and they just canceled it. I was supposed to
everybody's
see
canceling
it.
their tours right now.
I feel
yeah.
so bad. I'm so glad I teach, man, and I'm not in a band right now, because imagine your only source of income just being like, I re-downloaded Skype. This is a new Skype account for me because I might have to start teaching via Skype.
That's a really smart way to do it,
You know,
especially
I'm
given
gonna
the current circumstances.
I'm definitely going to lose some of my clients for at least temporarily, because some of them are like 7, 8 years old. You can't be like, hey, dude, move your first finger. Sometimes you have to, like, when you're in person, you're like, you'll physically move their finger over.
Yeah.
And you can also see it a bit better. Where, like, here I'm going to be like, your finger's too close. So it'll be interesting, but like, at least it's a source of income that I can keep somewhat going, where bands really just full stop. Not to mention all the people they've hired as well. From like the tour managers to the people like the light design and the sound stuff. Like, I feel so bad, but I'm hoping it'll die down soon. I got a concert in September. I got a wedding in August. I'm like, this wedding's gonna be really weird when nobody can fly into Canada. Like,
Oh man.
I turned to my fiance. I went, so you're going to be okay if it's just like 6 of us there, right? And she's like, yeah, no problem. I went, all right, cool. Because that may just happen.
We're gonna keep it small.
Yeah, because like, I read today that maybe it was Belgium. I can't remember. Like, maybe it was a place in the States. Maybe it was North Carolina and stuff, where they were originally at, like, you're not allowed anything above 100 people together in a room. But I think it might have been Belgium, where they're now like no more than 6 people.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Oh, like, what is happening?
I know.
Yeah,
Oh man, but we are reaching about that time where we got to wrap things up.
sure.
Before I give you the virtual boot out of
Yes.
here, is there anybody you like to thank? Any credits you want to give?
Sure. Well, thank you guys for having me, man.
No
This
problem.
stuff is
Oh, thank
anytime.
you.
No, seriously, man. It's the fact that you guys take the time to talk to artists as small as me as well. Like, it means a lot. It really does. We're all just trying to have fun with music and just trying to get it out there in the best way that we can. So,
Mm-hmm.
as somebody who works my ass off on my end, without guys like you, I could not be able to do the stuff that I do, because nobody would hear it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
So
ultimately the goal, is that someone will go through this podcast, be like, I don't know who that guy is. Let's give him a chance. And then they
yeah,
suddenly get into a new artist. You never
I
know.
discover music in the weirdest ways. It's certainly not Spotify half the time. So
Yeah,
it's
me too.
stuff like that. I appreciate. So I would start off by saying thank you to you guys, and then, of course, I mean, the standard thank yous to everybody who guested on the album, for making my music be at a level that I didn't ever think it was going to be able to accomplish. Like, these, guys like Ben and Chris and Andrew are on a whole nother level, and to see kind of my name beside them, and me being the primary writer for this stuff, like, it's kind of mind blowing.
I think I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think a squirrel just headbutted my door. Like, that's not even a joke.
He's like, yo, get on with it.
Well, definitely not your neighbors, because they're fucking gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
But yeah, so those people I would thank, because it's people that I've looked up to. I have now been able to kind of work alongside with, which is super cool. So those guys would be my biggest thing. And then Harley, the guy who does my albums with me. Like he produces and actually records it, because I am so not. As you can tell, technology is not really my friend. I always tell people, listen, I just play the music. I don't understand anything about it. I can tell you all the theory behind it, but if you want to tell me that you're gonna hook up an SM50 whatever, I'm gonna go, okay.
Don't
Sure.
insult my baby.
Hey, SM57s I know are the way to go.
Well,
or at
this
least
is the 7B.
Yeah.
This is the real baby. I make sure she feels great.
I
Sorry.
didn't hear that.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. But sometimes
Moving on.
I'll have my buddy Harley where he'll just, start going on about, okay, we're gonna be using this and this. I'm like, bro, I just write the music. You told me just to learn my parts. Here I am.
Does your buddy take on client, or is that like a special thing that you guys do?
No, he's runs a full studio. Like that's his thing.
Let's plug that in right here.
Yeah. So
Let's give him a plug.
his company is Acrylic Recording. And his name is Harley Tamblin, and he is the nicest dude you'll ever meet. And I think he's like 28 or 29. And when I first met him, he would have been like 25, 26. And I was really disconcerted about his age. And I'm telling you, he is a genius. Like he hears things. I'm really good at hearing things in music, and he hears things on such a deeper level. I can't plug his stuff enough, man. That guy is so. I'm really jealous how smart he is when it comes to music. So I know some people get put off by age a little bit when they're like, "Oh, he can't possibly know a lot of this stuff." He knows it. He knows it all.
That's just anywhere you go.
Yeah, I trust him
That's true.
I trust him with everything that I sent him. He's just a genius. But I've been trying to get him to do more online projects. People
Oh, we
but,
heard some good Daft Punk style singing there for a second.
oh
That
yeah,
was me a couple interviews back though too, so it's all good.
yeah. But anywho, that's who I plug. Harley Tamblin from Acrylic Recording. Amazing dude.
Sick. All right. Well, thanks again, guys, for tuning into the New Music Podcast. Once again, thank you, Ben Simon, for taking the time to come out here and have a chat with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you're new to the show, this is our interview portion, or our interview series, I guess, on YouTube. We're working on getting the regular podcast up and onto YouTube, so stay tuned for that. That means hit that fucking subscribe button, hit that fucking bell button. Kyle, what are they supposed to do to that bell button now?
Crowd kill the fuck out of it.
Yes, that's right. There you go.
There
See,
you
we
go.
got Ben doing it. There you
I
go.
can't do spin kicks, man. No way.
Oh fuck! No. I couldn't.
I've only
I'd get
seen one.
lightheaded.
I've only seen one man spin kick some guy in the face and knock somebody out in the pit, and that was probably the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
If I spin kick somebody, I guarantee you I'll end up more hurt. So that's.
I'll be limping my way out.
Yeah, it was an accident. I really didn't mean to.
Sorry, the music moved me.
Yeah. I don't
could
know
not
what is
control.
happening.
If that's not a YouTube video, it needs to be.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, everyone.
I'll talk to Jared Dines.
Oh my God, yes. Please. Credit us. Credit us, please. We would love that. But yes, thanks again. Check out all the links, the Instagram, the Facebook, the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Bye-bye.
Bye. He did the roar.
Did the bar.
Do the roar.
Well, guys, thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Eh?
No.